The question is, how do I develop innovation as a set of skills? This is really important, not just for leaders, but actually for teammates. Because for years, I told myself personally a story that I'm just not creative. And I'm like, I'm not one of those creatives. And it's true, I'm not. Like, I have a hard time drawing like nice stick men. Do you know what I mean? But innovation and creativity shows up in so many more ways than just art. I think that a lot of us have put creativity and innovation into a box, and we're like, well, I'm not musical, or I'm not artistic, or I'm not colorful, or I'm not, this, or I'm not that. Therefore, I am not creative. But you can absolutely be creative in your own unique way. So how can we develop? I like to think of this as a bunch of hacks that I can give you, hacks for generating creativity and innovation. Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode where we're continuing our conversation about creating healthy workplace culture. This is so critical, healthy workplace culture. When we have healthy workplace culture, I'll tell you what, that is an environment, that is an ecosystem where everyone is positive and productive, high performance, and frankly, very, very profitable. And so we've been looking at the idea of traits of people who create a flourishing workplace culture. This is really important because every one of us is both the product of a system, but we're also contributors to it. And so if I want to create a healthy workplace culture, well, I can sit around and wait for the boss to do it or the corporate bigwigs to do it, or every day I can show up with the traits of a person that contribute to and create a healthy workplace culture. So we've been looking at several of them. We looked at several so far. The first is personal empowerment. The second is personal awareness and management. The third is emotional and social intelligence. The fourth is leadership and courage. And now I want to dive into the fifth one, which is being innovative and entrepreneurial. Now you might be saying, what does being innovative and entrepreneurial have to do with creating a flourishing or healthy workplace culture? And I'm going to suggest it has a lot more than you think. When we lose the innovative or the entrepreneurial element within our organization, our workplace, everything begins to dry up. It gets old, it gets stale, it gets decrepit. It almost gets kind of zombie-like, sort of alive, but not really vibrant. There's only one sea on the planet called the Dead Sea. And the reason it's called the Dead Sea is because literally it's dead. Nothing lives in it. And that's because it has an inflow, but it has no outflow. And so you got water flowing in, but no water flowing out. Now, it kind of works in the sense that the body of water stays relatively stable because it's in a hot part of the world where the level of evaporation is pretty high. But when you don't have both inflow and outflow, that is literally the definition of a swamp, and everything dies. And so the salt content in the Dead Sea is very, very high because of this. It's been around the Dead Sea for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so nothing can live there. Now think about that. If you've got inflow but no outflow, if you have policy and procedure, that's inflow, but no innovation and entrepreneurship, outflow, then your organization, your workplace will absolutely die. Now, Albert Einstein said that logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere. And I just love that. When you think about today's workplace, I'll tell you what, we need more innovation. And even if it's not like brand new, whoever thought of this kind of innovation, we definitely need more of an entrepreneurial can-do kind of spirit. A lot of the time people say, well, I'm not very creative, I'm not very innovative, but did you know that we're not necessarily talking about invention? Invention is when you break new ground, but innovation is when you do old things in new ways. The iPhone, in spite of the fact that it's probably been the most profitable phone in human history, was not an invention. It was an innovation. It's not like, they invented the smartphone, Apple. They innovated the products of others that had been developed and been around and in the marketplace. Now, what they did was an innovation. They took something that was already there and they simply made it better. Imagine if you had an employee base, a team base. Imagine in your workplace if you had some people who came to work every day thinking, how can I make things better today? I'll tell you what, you better believe that would create a flourishing workplace. That would absolutely create a flourishing workplace when people are just sort of stuck in the status quo, in the old rut, in the old rituals, in the old routine, in the old way of doing things. Well, that is not a flourishing, vibrant workplace. That's just like the Dead Sea. We might as well call it the dead workplace. But when we go from not only inflow to outflow, when we go from not just going through the motions of the status quo, but actually dreaming new things and trying new things, all of a sudden innovation begins to flow. So here's the question. The question is, how do I develop innovation as a set of skills? This is really important, not just for leaders, but actually for teammates. Because for years, I told myself personally a story that I'm just not creative. And I'm like, I'm not one of those creatives. And it's true, I'm not. Like, I have a hard time drawing like nice stick men. Do you know what I mean? But innovation and creativity shows up in so many more ways than just art. I think that a lot of us have put creativity and innovation into a box, and we're like, well, I'm not musical, or I'm not artistic, or I'm not colorful, or I'm not, this, or I'm not that. Therefore, I am not creative. But you can absolutely be creative in your own unique way. So how can we develop? I like to think of this as a bunch of hacks that I can give you, hacks for generating creativity and innovation. The first thing is to start changing your story. Realize you are creative. And this is just about the story that you tell yourself. Again, like myself, if you are telling yourself constantly a story, well, I'm not creative, I'm not innovative, I'm not that person, well, then of course you won't. But if you begin to change your story, everything will in your life begin to change. The second hack I have found for developing creativity is to remember that there is a role for creativity in your life that you need to give more space to than you probably are. So a lot of people say, well, I'll get creative about it if I have the time. Right now, it's just done, and I just did it. And I don't need to worry about creativity because I'm all about the efficiency. And that's kind of like I am oftentimes. But what I've discovered is the things that have brought the most growth into my relationships and definitely into my business is not me just doing more of the same. It's how can I take something and innovate it? And I'll give you a simple example from our business. I mean, we do a lot of training and coaching, and that means I do a lot of writing. And so I'm always speaking, and that means you got to do a lot of writing. And I had a model for career development that I had used in one context for 3-4 years. And sure, I had made, tens of thousands of dollars in using that model. And then I had this idea where I could take that exact same material, reword it, rework it, reorganize it. And that was just in the last 18 months. And since then, we've made over $200,000, just a simple rework of something. Now, it wasn't like, oh, I needed to go back to the drawing board and completely invent something new. Sure, there's times for that. But what if you just looked at what you already have and you said, I wonder, how can I build on something? I think that's literally what Apple does every time they release a new iPhone. Actually, they do that so well that some people get mad because they're like, how come there's not enough new innovations and there's not enough fancy new features? And the reality is you can only release so much innovation at a time. Even Apple acknowledges that. But I'll tell you what, try competing with their business model, billions and billions and billions of dollars later. Most people who criticize Apple are nowhere close to taking in the kind of revenue that they do. And I think there's something to be learned there. They take time for creativity. It's not an afterthought. Innovation to a company like Apple is not, something we'll do if we have time for it. It's actually a high priority item. And they're not like, we need to throw out the iPhone and invent something completely new. They just look at what they've got and they think, how can we tweak this? How can we add that? How can we remove that? How can we do this? How can we adjust that? And billions of dollars later. And it's been revolutionary for me just to watch them, a completely different industry, completely different technology, completely different thing, but just innovating. Another hack that you can implement in your life, like right away, to develop more creativity and innovation is to be active physically. It's amazing how, talking about apples, like Steve Jobs, who was kind of the founder of Apple, led Apple for many years. Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, continues to lead Facebook and Meta. And you can be a hater all day long, but hey, I always like to look at billionaires and think, you know what, if somebody's done something that's way more than me, I don't have to like everything about them, but I need to have some basic respect. And these guys will tell you that often Steve Jobs now has passed away, but he would often take walking meetings. And you might say, well, why is that? Well, number one, I think you'd all agree, it feels good just to get out. But there's something about hemoglobin and endorphins that actually generates your creativity. And I think a lot of the time we think creativity is I'm gonna lock myself in this little room, in this little cave, and come out with something creative. And I think that a lot of the time we actually generate creativity through physical activity. Some of the greatest ideas, that idea that I just told you about, where I took one of our courses and just reworked it, and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, I'll tell you what, I got that idea when I was on a run. And I get most of my good ideas when I'm running. Now, you don't have to run. Maybe for you, it's walk. Maybe you're going to play hockey. Maybe you're going to play tennis. Maybe you're going to be a cycler. Whatever you like to do, go ahead and do it. Maybe you're a Zumba fan. But the idea is that creative thinking doesn't just come to you when you're in the boardroom, with the big whiteboard up on the screen. Often creative thinking comes to you in the moment that you least expect it, and that's when you're physically active. Another thing that will help you when it comes to creativity is sleep. I'll tell you what, I cannot overstate the power of sleep. There is an unbelievable amount of research that shows that the deeper your sleep, the more creative you become. Some of the greatest creative ideas in human history have come when people have given themselves the benefits of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, sleep where your sleep is deep, where your brain is renewing itself, where your emotions are getting recharged, refreshed, strengthened, and built up. And now what happens is you actually begin to have creative juices flowing. Can I go ahead and give you one more hack that will help you develop creativity and innovation? And that is this, that there is no failure. Failure does not exist, I think, for the true creative. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't sometimes fail. But if your failure, and I'm using that lightly, allows you to innovate and get better and to learn, then it's not a failure at all. Some of the greatest lessons in my life are from things that to everybody else look like failure. But what they didn't know is that I was learning, I was iterating, I was evolving, I was innovating. And I want you to think about that the same way. I'll tell you what, stop caring what other people think, because at the end of the day, what other people think doesn't really matter as much as what you think. And so if you're looking at everyone else's definition of failure and you're saying, well, they think I failed, therefore I must be a failure, I'm telling you that that will hinder and hold back all of the creative juices within your life. And so we've been talking about these 10 traits of people who create a flourishing workplace culture. And the fifth trait, the one that we just talked about, is being innovative and entrepreneurial. Did you know you can be innovative and entrepreneurial without even running your own business? You can work in a large, massive corporation, if they'll let you, and be very entrepreneurial. And that is not so much about how you make your money, but it's about how you think and approach problems. And so I would encourage you to do that if you want to create a flourishing workplace culture. And so at Flourishing Workplace, we believe in changing the world by changing the workplace. We believe in workplaces where everyone belongs, where everyone contributes, and where literally everyone matters. And so would you go to flourishingworkplace.com and book a discovery session today? We want to sit with you and support all of your goals and objectives as together we change the world by changing the workplace. That's flourishingworkplace.com, and we'll see you in our next episode. Thanks so much.